Laura!
Marisa!
What time is it?
It's Divine Mother Earth time!
Woohoo!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Divine Mother Earth Time. I am your co-host, LauraEisenhower.
And I'm your other co-host, Marisa Acachella, and we are here with the great Elio Zagami, who has just written an explosive new book called The Vatican's Top Secret Alien Agenda: Hidden Encounters, Forbidden Rituals, and Jesuit Astronomers in the Age of UFO Disclosure. Rips away the veil. For the first time, Zagami exposes the Vatican's hidden, long-term knowledge of extraterrestrial life and its secret UFO agenda. Quietly managed by the Jesuits since the 1950s, this agenda threatens to shatter humanity's deepest religious beliefs far beyond Catholicism itself. This book dares to ask the question, what is the Vatican's top secret alien agenda? Leo, what is it?
Well, it's basically to sit on top of the narrative. And of course, once the disclosure happens, they had already calculated since the 50s when this whole process started that, of course, the people will immediately go to their religious leaders. That forced a pope, which had himself a encounter of the second kind and then of the third kind. Of course, when I talk about encounters of the second third kind relating to INEX standards, and that was John the 23rd. John the 23rd was the guy who put together the Second Vatican Council. And then, right before it all was kicking off, he had an extraordinary direct encounter with an alien being in Castel Gandolfo. Before that, in the 50s, there had been already a connection with, of course, what happened in Roswell, and earlier what happened in Magenta in northern Italy, which was the first reported UFO crash, which led to the birth of the whole reverse engineering program. The program that, of course, is on top of the disclosure. So we have always discussed, in my books, the Jesuits and the Sabbatean Frankists leading the New World Order. And, of course, Disclosure Day of Steven Spielberg is the epitome of that demonstration. It demonstrates my thesis. You have a Sabbatean Frankist who was in the mega group with Les Wexner doing a movie, and the guy who does the screenplay is himself a Catholic Jesuit agent. When I say this is a really relevant topic and a relevant, of course, book, because we have often been misled. And of course, Laura herself knows that very well from her own direct experiences. We hear a lot about UFO advocates, UFO disclosure, but we don't really know who these people really are, who have appeared gradually from the 90s onwards more and more in a prominent way, because ufology seemed kind of an underground movement, of apasionados, of people like going to the desert but the whole thing is being basically choreographed and controlled from the very start. And this year, Daniel Sheehan confirmed it once and for all, a contact in the desert. And he also confirmed that he's been invited by Pope Leo XIV in Castel Gandolfo. Castel Gandolfo was designated as the summer residence of the Pope, but it was designated in the 1950s to replace with the growing pollutions in the sky. They had moved the whole astronomical observatory to Castel Gandolfo. But then at one point, even Castel Gandolfo became too polluted light-wise. So then the process after the Second Vatican Council started to put in place another big project, which actually took place from that moment onwards with the Jesuits and Mount Graham. The guy behind that was Father Coin, who was at the time the head of the Specula Vaticana. In my book, I talk about Father Coin, how he inspired Brother Consul Magno, who then is at the moment the director of the foundation, but used to be until last year the director of the observatory, the present director, Father Sosa, the people behind this disclosure in the Vatican, from Father Grasso in the 50s, then Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, of course, which takes a leading role in the transformational efforts to adapt the Catholic faith to this whole disclosure, because they want to have a leading role. So what is the leading role of a Catholic if he can't baptize somebody? That's why they came up with this monstrous idea of wanting to baptize an extraterrestrial, which is not. These are two Jesuits, of course, the authors, Brother Consolmagno and Paul Mueller. But in reality, this was the title of an article dedicated to Father Coin, who was the mentor of these people. And Father Coin was the guy who eventually forced the Indians to give their territory up, to build up those astronomical observatories, because it's not only the Vatican involved, but also a consortium of German universities that then created the infamous Lucifer, which is itself.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. It's Mount Graham is where the Lucifer telescope is.
Yeah, but there is a lot of misconceptions, because fortunately the Vatican, as soon as, of course, the name came out, they obscured their links to their site and the Lucifer project linked to them, and rather blame this consortium of German universities, which I have exposed as being totally hand in hand with the Vatican, because even the new director of the Specula Vaticana went to the University of Heidelberg, which leads this whole consortium. So aside from that, the position, the most important motivation for them was to transform, first of all, the theology. Once they were connected to this whole exopolitical game. And when this connection happened, now we know about, of course, we have the great granddaughter here of President Dwight Eisenhower involved with that famous various episodes, actually, 2 episodes. One supposed to be when he was in Palm Springs, by the way, and the other one.
I have a lot to say about that.
Ironical.
But what happens is that there was, since Roswell, already the involvement of the clergy that was directly involved, reporting to the Vatican. And at the same time, Consul Alberto Perego, who was a Vatican ambassador, had a direct experience of UFO squadron over the Vatican in 1954. And aside from Alberto Perego, in 1954, he was also the American ambassador to have the same experience over the skies of Rome. All this happened between the end of October 1954 and beginning of November 1954. There was a series of sightings that went on between France and Italy. These sightings were really an anomaly. At one point, they stopped a soccer game in Florence because of these UFOs over Florence. I mean, that to stop a soccer game in Italy is
probably unheard of.
Unheard of. Yeah. So what happens here is that the Vatican constructed a way to unify all the religions in a way to prepare then the reception for this disclosure. And that is why they have been working so much into the unifying, once again, all the various Christian denominations, which, by the way, have also their own theological difference in relation to the alien phenomenon, the UFO phenomenon, UAP as they call it today. Because, for example, we see it very clearly that the Orthodox have mainly a demonic view of every alien being. Rather, there is, of course, certain differences between the Orthodox here in the US and the Orthodox in Russia that have a more interdimensional view that excludes any physical, while instead the one in America, we saw it recently with Father DeYoung, guested by Tucker Carlson, have a more physical, which in a way is more similar to the evangelical take over it. But in the evangelicals, we have also different sides, because we have, for example, the Timothy Alberino faction, which is more materialistic. Then we have the most of the evangelicals, which see them as interdimensional or extra-dimensional beings, demonic beings. But the ones who instead embrace the alien, forged by this Second Vatican Council, directed by a guy who had a direct experience of the third kind, because it was John the 23rd, who, by the way, was also a Freemason and had his first experience of the second kind of contact within a lodge in Istanbul.
What does that mean now? A close encounter of the second kind versus, can you just tell us what that is for people who don't know?
Yes, it's very important to classify this kind of encounters. You have the encounter which is, of course, direct with the being or with an orb that might be some kind of sent by a mothership or something. But it has to be a close, direct encounter that is like, we had the movie Encounters of the Third Kind, which is the epitome of that. It demonstrates what that really is. The second kind is when you see a UFO, but you don't actually have contact with them.
Okay.
So, it is, of course, different kind of encounters that then characterize what can be an experience of contactism, or in some cases of abduction. Now, in regards to my book, I expose for the first time also the secret links of the remote viewing programs of Lieutenant Colonel Sabin with the Jesuits and the Vatican, that actually wanted to enroll Roberto Pinotti 10 years ago, who refused. These are direct testimony. I also have photos with the Colonel Salvin and Pinotti, the whole story behind it. I was actually the guy who earlier on introduced the Academy of the Illuminati to Roberto Pinotti, so I know that very well. Roberto Pinotti is a brother Mason. I've also been a Mason, so there is a very much a direct involvement of Freemasonry at the highest level. There was two worship of Master Licio Gelli involved with this. So we're talking about some people very high up in the Masonic world. That's why this book is different from other books, because other people don't give you this perspective. They don't have the inner work. They don't know about what happens in the Masonic lodges or the documentations within the Masonic lodges. When the testimony of Pope John the 23rd about his own encounter of the first encounter was in a lodge in what was deemed a Rosicrucian chapter, which is basically it can be part of the 18th degree of the workings of the 18th degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite. Some say he was then inducted in a more secretive Rosicrucian group. The Rosicrucians have always had this link. Heinrich or Jacques Vallée also talked about the Rosicrucians, because the Rosicrucians have always had since ancient times this link. I was myself the director of the Aula, the head of the Fraternitas Rosicruciana Antigua of Arnold Krumheller in the British Isles, and I worked with the Società Rosicruciana in Anglia. So what happened was that in San Marino, where Laura went for a conference with Roberto Pinotti, a gentleman, a Freemason, a high-level Freemason, gave to a member of the P2 called Pierre Carpi these testimonies by John the 23rd. They were eventually then printed in a book by Pierre Carpi. Pierre Carpi was both a writer, a journalist, as well as a filmmaker. He made also some films. Particular film that I would recommend you can find online is the film on Count Cagliostro, who himself was very inspirational for his own ET contacts, because he founded a whole rite based on his alleged contact with Enoch and Elia. So there is, this is the background that I'm giving you regarding this whole thing. But it's very important to understand that this information was given to Pierre Carpi, who then, of course, published it. It was, of course, picked up rarely outside of France or Italy. And much of the information that I'm bringing in my book, it's not really known in the English-speaking world, mainly because a lot of these books have never been translated. For example, thanks to the Ufologic Italian Center, the Centro Ufologico Nazionale, the CUN, of Roberto Pinotti, I was given a lot of documentation. And at the same time, I was able also to collaborate with Alfredo Lissoni, Alfredo Lissoni with Roberto Pinotti in the year 2000 presented the Mussolini files, which were the files, the secret fascist files about also that UFO crash and the retrieval that led to the reverse engineering program and the build-up of this secret project called Cabinet 33, Arrest 33 by Guglielmo Marconi, the inventor of the radio. Eventually, he will have reverse engineered some of it and created the ray of death, which could have changed the outcome of the Second World War in favor of the Nazi fascists, but for that reason the Pope himself intervened. Pope Pius XII intervened and said to Marconi, who was, of course, a very good Catholic, he said, you shouldn't give this death ray to Mussolini in Italy, otherwise here we're going to end up all Nazis. And, the word, I mean, it would have changed how did this death ray work? The death ray worked very simply. It could stop any engine of an airplane, of a train, of a tank in real time.
Wow. Really?
So that will basically would have changed completely the course of the war. Imagine what would have happened with the Americans arriving on the shores of Normandy and everything blocked. It would have been the end of their invasion. It would have been the end of the liberation of Europe. So Pius XII had direct information about this retrieval in 1933. Now, the interesting thing that I report in my book, apart from the forensic analyzed documents, because they have been forensically analyzed and confirmed to be genuine, they were initially given at the end of the 90s to various people in Italy, including Roberto Pinotti and Alfredo Lissoni, from a secret source. The secret source ended up being the grandson of Benito Mussolini, the son of Galeazzo Ciano, who, as you know, was shot because he betrayed Mussolini. So there is a very dramatic story there, no? At one point, he starts, various people, it was Alfredo Lissoni, Pinotti, and also a guy called Giorgio Bongiovanni, who claims to have a stigmata due to his vision of the Fatima, whatever. They receive these documents from the secret source. They start comparing them, and gradually the secret source send them also to some newspaper, just like hints. Then at one point, the grandson of Mussolini revealed himself to Pinotti, who wasn't allowed yet to say his name until he died. And then when he died, he revealed the name. And of course, this is very important information because it happened in Magenta. And there is a very interesting synchronicity regarding all this, which I have actually outlined, and Roberto finds himself fascinating. Magenta is also the surname of the guy who organized the first ufologics conference inside the Vatican at St. Anne's Gate in 2002. Magenta and the guy, interesting enough, the guy who then did the forensic analysis of all these documents has exactly the same name of a doctor from Vergiate, from Magenta, who has been dedicated a square, but they are two completely different people. One is a forensic analyst and the other one was an ordinary doc. So there's a lot of then Magenta is a very specific place in Italy, which gave also birth to the name of a specific color, and there was a very brutal war there. So it was a little bit, there is some, when you go after this research, you find a lot of synchronicities. And then synchronicities goes back to, of course, the guy who invented the concept, which was Carl Gustav Jung. My father was himself involved with Mayer, who was the direct disciple of Carl Gustav Jung. My father worked with him in Switzerland for a couple of years. And Carl Gustav Jung at times is portrayed, because of his book that he made late in his life, as a skeptic. While instead there is ample evidence, which I also published, which states that he was rather fascinated and admitted the existence. But of course, the problem is everything became classified and secretive the moment in which they started the reverse engineering. Even to this day, the biggest problem is actually the reverse engineering that blocks the final disclosure, the legacy program. The legacy program is that program which makes it almost impossible for let's say, for this whole thing to be fully revealed. Because the moment in which you fully reveal, inevitably you clash with national security interest. And also there is, of course, we all know that, you know, presidents, politicians, they are informed on a need-to-know basis. Some of them had the opportunity to dwell more deep in it, like, for example, the great-grandfather of Laura, who was involved directly in this whole thing. But others were not. Now, when it comes down to the movie of Steven Spielberg, I found it a bit disappointing that he chose the Nixon encounter rather than the Eisenhower encounter.
Yeah, there's so much, though, that there's so many layers to all of that. And we're going to get into it in the Vatican controlling the disclosure, because some of these characters have covered up the fact that MJ-12 was involved in signing treaties, and they wanted Eisenhower to be a scapegoat in many ways, from what I've heard. So I just wanted to, you know, add that, because there was an unconditional surrender instrument in 1952, because the Nazis really infiltrated the United States and began to really form this, you know, deep state.
Well, with Operation Paperclip, definitely. But the thing is that what happened is that all this reverse engineering passed from the Nazi fascists on to both the Americans and the Soviets when they liberated, of course, Europe. And of course, each, you know, we had the Soviets that had all the interest to try to take on all these secrets that were gathered and so on. Then both of them, though, ended up building later on, of course, much later on, what is known as these remote viewing programs, which function as interdimensional gate openers. And when I'm saying interdimensional gate openers, I'm not excluding the extraterrestrial hypothesis, like, you know, Jacques Vallée seems to say that one excludes the other. In reality, they are both connected, because an advanced extraterrestrial race will have also interdimensional, you know, possibilities. But the thing that people don't understand is that Jacques Vallée is a guy who works with the legacy program, just like Davis, just like Daniel Sheehan. These people have taken over and made a mockery of the UFO disclosure this year at Contact in the Desert. They made a mockery. They are there standing on a pedestal, knowing certain things and just giving you drops of truths. And everybody's like, ah. And the Vatican is behind it. And we have confirmation of that, because then we have the disciple, her mentor, Jacques Vallée loves Pasulka. Pasulka is another gatekeeper. And all these gatekeepers then belong to the Sol Foundation, which last year did an event, which Pinotti was invited to. And another gatekeeper is Gary Nolan. And of course, the biggest gatekeeper of them all is Al Puthoff, Catholic like David Grush, and like the ones. So there is some very specific interest here the Vatican is controlling.
And Hal Puthoff was the handler of my ex, who wanted me to be recruited into this Mars project. So maybe we can get into that towards the end.
I would think that he wanted to recruit you for his remote viewing, because that is what he really does in regards to, I mean, but you see, that Dr. Al Puthoff is what Colonel Savin is in Russia. And then we have a same kind of guy also in China. They are all competing on the reverse engineering. So that's why they don't disclose the whole thing. But, I mean, please, your questions.
Well, let me ask you something. Why exactly is the Vatican taking the lead? What is the advantage? What is the point? Because
for the last 500 years, okay.
But does it have to do with original sin? Does it have to do with making humans less than? I mean, what is the Vatican? Explain to me the Vatican's involvement, because
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
sure,
I
sure,
really
sure.
don't understand.
Okay. In the 50s, the Vatican was a precursor. Today we have the evangelics panicking. The aliens, the demon. The Vatican was very like this. As
Hmm.
soon as they got knowledge of what happened in Magenta, then later on in Roswell, then they were directly involved with Eisenhower. There was a member, prominent archbishop present with Eisenhower at the meetings. So here we're talking about direct involvement. As
Hmm.
soon as they saw this, they had to devise a way, and I lost myself earlier because I should have completed my sentence. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Yes.
Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, of course, very popular because he inspired even the movie The Exorcist, the protagonist, but he also inspired Arthur C. Clarke and the movie 2001 Space Odyssey. He's called by wire the inventor of the internet with his noosphere. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, before dying, because of what was happening in the early 50s with all these UFOs going around, even over Washington, he had moved himself because of his controversial nature. He wasn't loved by the Second Vatican Council Church, by the more traditionalists. He wasn't loved, so he had to move here to the United States. He created a way in his theology. He said, okay, the universe, the Big Bang, is born out of the original sin. So the whole universe needs to be baptized. That is the solution for the Catholics. And that puts them on top of all the other religions.
So basically, it's to baptize the entire universe to
Okay.
make
Okay.
that.
First of all, you have to understand that since the fathers of the church, since Origen, since the very early Christian thinkers, there's always been a discussion on the nature of the angels, on the nature of the demons. If the demons were fallen angels or they were actually the spirits of the Nephilim. Then in that case, you have the book of Jude citing the book of Enoch, which is not recognized. There is all these theological questions, but the Vatican and the Jesuits, remember, are the scientists and the astronomers who first went also to China and brought to China the knowledge of astronomy. They are the ones who created this whole thing because they want to control. First of all, in the last 500 years since the Reformation. With the Counter-Reformation, they infiltrated every single angle of Protestantism to bring them back to the church. And they managed in the end. They established their own international spying service. One of the most evolved intelligence centers also is controlled by the Jesuits. And then what happened is that the Jesuits, of course, know that with the Second Vatican Council, they created the basis for the one-world religion. They abandoned those certain dogmas that were, the Council, the Second Vatican Council between 1961 and 1965 changed the whole nature of the church, which became embracing of all the other faiths. Nowadays, so that was a very big move, and it happened in connection with this experience by the Pope himself, John the 23rd. So they prepared to lead the one-world religion in disclosure, because the moment you have disclosure, the people don't go to the president or to the prime ministers. They go to the religious leaders, and they wanted to control the whole thing. And that's why, for example, Daniel Sheehan is the lawyer of Stephen Greer, is the lawyer of Luis Elizondo, is the guy who controls part of this.
But who is this guy and why does he have so much power?
Daniel Sheehan was a novitiate in the Jesuits who then for many years worked at the headquarters of the Jesuits in the United States. He's the legal representative for a time after being a former novitiate, and then created also a specific institute with the Jesuit and worked with the Jesuits in controlling the whole ufology and disclosure narrative.
Okay, here's the thing.
Have you ever heard of Daniel Sheehan?
I have heard it. I have, but I just want to know.
Just, you know what? You should just go on Contact in the Desert YouTube channel and see the speech publicly available of Daniel Sheehan, and he is giving it away this year. Just like Jacques Vallée gave it away this year, because Jacques Vallée this year admitted that they have aliens inside laboratories so they can create the language, but that is something that the remote viewers, in fact, people like Hal Puthoff and the others, that's why Dr. Davis, who works with Hal Puthoff, was there at Contact in the Desert this year. They were all control gatekeepers. The gatekeepers are all controlled by the Vatican. Stephen Greer was guested on St. Peter's Square in Balducci's apartment.
You're kidding. I never trusted that guy ever.
What can you tell us about the Ninth Circle, though, and that aspect of the
Ninth Circle, I have no information about that. What my book relies on hard evidence. I couldn't speculate, because the moment I speculate, the academic world is going to attack me left, right, and center. So what I did is to make a book where the evidence is so strong, and it shows, who is behind David Grush, who is behind Luis Elizondo, who is behind Jeremy Corbell, who is behind George Knapp, who is behind all these people. And then you show it, and then Daniel Sheehan admits it. I've been invited by Leo XIV. We are all been invited in Castel Gandolfo.
Wow.
That's
And
it.
that's the summer home of the Pope.
Yeah, that is the place, also is the headquarters of the Jesuit astronomers, not only the summer home of the Pope. That is the headquarters, which is connected with Mount Graham, which is connected with every single telescope in the world.
But the thing is, okay, who are the Jesuits, and what are they trying to keep from us? What are they not disclosing? What do they have to gain? All of them. What's the real agenda?
It's almost 500 years of history of the Jesuits, which I've actually disclosed in the last volume of my Confessions, which closed the whole series, as you know, volume 12. So I highly advise you to study that book, because it gives you the whole story of Ignazio Loyola, who was a member of the Alumbrados, who were an Illuminati group in the Iberic Peninsula, who was practicing things which were deemed heretic. In fact, he was condemned many times by the Inquisition. Before the Pope, at one point in 1540, invited him to a place called Tivoli, in this rock, in this castle, which I am very well acquainted with, because I had my house near there. So what happened is that he embraced Ignazio Loyola and the Jesuits because he needed desperately to fight the Church of England, Martin Luther, the growing Reformation. Those people could be useful because they were knowledgeable about astronomy, about magic, the occult, alchemy. They were basically ideal to also make them members of the Inquisition. So they, as if you are an occultist, you can see another occultist. You can understand another occultist. The Dominicans, which were the ones previously in charge of the Inquisitions, were not so acquainted. So the Pope really decided at that point and then that was when they did the Council of Trento. That was when they laid the very foundation for the Roman Rite as we know it, which reforming also the rituals of the Church before the Second Vatican Council. Because the Second Vatican Council is basically destroying the Catholic Church, making tabula rasa, so then we can do kumbaya with the guitar in the church and embrace all the other faiths, and have a Muslim on the altar, a Jew, everything. I'm not saying these things are inherently wrong, but I'm just saying that their intention is to lead always the whole religious narrative in their favor. But also there is another thing, and this is much more serious. 53 miles of secret archives, now the Vatican Apostolic Archive. 23 miles of Vatican Apostolic Library. That knowledge became very applicable for beings from other parts of the universe.
So what is in those 53 miles? What's the big secret?
53 miles of it used to be called the Secret Archive. Now Pope Francis wanted to change the name because Secret Archive sounded a bit, like people got the wrong idea. But in reality, they should get the wrong idea, because it's almost impossible to accede, even as an academic, to those archives. I was very lucky, because for my book, I had a guy called Alfredo Lissoni, who is a professor of religion, who wrote this book many years ago about the Vatican archives. He had access to the archives as a professor of religion, but he had to create a fictional excuse to accede to those archives. So he said, I'm here to study Christian legends. And they opened the doors. So then at that point, we have a lot of testimony interesting in his work. Pasulka, who is instead the gatekeeper, who is approved by Guy Consolmagno and the Jesuits who wrote this book, she admits that she herself had to lie and say that because she was invited to for the case of a couple of saints that needed it. So she was there and she could access the archive because she was studying to in the Catholic Church you have to do certain studies in order to approve a guy to become a beato and then a saint. So Pasulka is a number one gatekeeper. In fact, she's the disciple of Jacques Vallée. Let's not forget, Jacques Vallée was a member of the Church of Satan, very good friend of Anton LaVey. In the 70s, he was all over the place here in California with black masses and the likes. Not only with the encounters of the third kind, inspiring, of course, that French scientist in the film of Steven Spielberg. He was a Satanist. There is photos of him and Anton LaVey. He's, he's not, and he has admitted, he actually impressed Pasulka once in his home when he showed this satanic book and said, "You see how many pages there are? 666. No,
that's so obvious.
Jacques Vallée is a creep number one. But everybody, Jacques Vallée, Jacques Vallée, Jacques Vallée.
Wow.
Now, the thing is that in my book, because of this book, I might have a great number of enemies in the next few weeks coming against me because I've exposed the whole ufologic movement. I don't care about people, I know we have a common friend, even my past publisher, Brad Olsen, always invites me to content in the day. Come here. This year, I didn't want to tell him the truth. I just told him, listen, I can't come. I'm busy. I was closing. I will not go there to face the enemies which I have exposed in my book. It would be hypocrite from me. What, standing in front of them? To do what?
Yeah, I mean, you might be hit by a direct energy weapon, which is...
No, apart from that, remember that I was also involved in the intelligence operations myself. I was Freemason, so I studied remote viewing. I was in Russia. I know those people from the Russian FSB, from the GRU very well. And they were also the ones who, because in my book, at the very end of the book, I also talk about my previously classified encounter of the third kind, which happened in Rome, in Campo dei Fiori. And that is not going to be disclosed. You will have to read the book.
All right. Well, now we're really intrigued.
Well, I can tell you one thing about this briefly about this event that happened to me. It was previously disclosed by the SISMI, the Italian military intelligence, because at the time I had only just finished I was part of the Air Force. I worked in the Ministry of Defense in Italy as every Italian was obliged to do 1 year of service. And I ended up in the Air Force because of my father and his friends who was a general. And I worked at the Ministry of Defense there. Then I was recruited in Operation Gladio. And I did also one thing for them. Then in 1993, I had this experience. As soon as I had this experience, and because of what I was then given, I was almost obliged to go to the military intelligence. So I contacted the military intelligence in Italy through this friend, was Stefano, who was working within the security detail of Giulio Andreotti. Giulio Andreotti was involved for a very long time in exopolitics because he was a friend of Alberto Perego, the guy who saw the UFO squadron on top of the Vatican. In my book, I have an image, a photo of the UFO squadron over the Vatican given to me by Roberto Pinotti, a genuine one. I have also reconstruction, but it's also a genuine one. There is a permanent squadron over the Vatican.
Permanent? Like they're there now?
They're always there. They're almost always there because they can use some kind of plasma thing to camouflage, to not being visible. They can also shift dimensionally. The whole experience that I went through was then relayed to the Italian SISMI. The Italian SISMI was the only one to have the access to the documents which I gave to them, until I also later on in 2002 gave part, not the entire documentation, but part of it. I met this colonel from the GRU in Russia to also confront them of what I was given in Rome in 1993.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Can you help us understand the level of mind control, though, that people might be under, or threats that they're under, in order to push this sort of controlled disclosure, and where it stands today, and what you're seeing?
Good question.
Well, I see it very when I see people like Hal Puthoff on the age of disclosure and all that fake, disclosure narrative with Marco Rubio and all these people giving, they give an inch of truth, but of course they are just showing you the shell of the truth, not the real truth. I mean, this whole disclosure, we saw it in the last few, the dumps of this UAP, the UFO disclosure from the government. It's all about the lights in the sky. Now we have some orbs. And then we have Steven Spielberg preparing the whole thing by doing this movie to see, Steven Spielberg claims he doesn't have contact with people of that kind. He's the biggest liar ever. I mean, the guy was a member of the mega group. And in the mega group, there were members of the military industrial complex. And I had
What's
told
the mega group?
the
What is
mega group you can find on Wikipedia. It was founded by Les Wexner. I talked about it in my
Les
book about
Wexner.
is on my book about the rise and fall of Frankie's monster. Yeah. So you have the mega group in that book. I can give you the exact page.
Okay.
Spielberg was also the one who, when he went to the White House, he had Ronald Reagan saying at the presentation of ET, there is people in this room who know this is the truth. And you are telling me you don't know people from the military industrial complex? The guy, I mean, it's a shame that he must lie so much in his life. He could at least, at the end of his life, stop lying. He doesn't. So that's it. I mean, I don't want to give away the movie for the people who, of course, want to go and see it. But it's obvious that...
I agree, Laura.
Huh?
And Laura made a face, and I'm like, I agree. We're like...
Well, I mean, at the end, you kind of bring out E.T. out of retirement on a wheelchair. I mean, that really made it for me. That was hilarious.
I saw you said that.
No, I mean, I think it's important to watch to see what's being put out there and
Absolutely. It needs to be seen. It's an excellent movie also for entertainment. I mean, I find it very entertaining because it's, we all like, since my childhood, Steven Spielberg and his movies. So, I mean, it's a great movie. It's entertainment, but it's also a psyop. So we also have to take that into account. It's a psychological operation to see how people react, to normalize certain things. You have, for example, a reference to remote viewing all over the movies. It's quite incredible, but, of course, they have to have this alien thing in their hand and so. But remote viewing is a reality. Mm-hmm. Remote viewing is the reality that brought us, and in my book I explain the reverse engineering from the Stargate project that used to be the remote viewing to the Stargate project of today, which is the data centers. And the data centers are also the gates into this reality for these demonic creatures.
Leo, there's so much here to unpack. I mean, it's like every time you say something, there's like, oh my gosh, I could go in a million different directions because it's like your brain has so much knowledge in it. It's like, I think I would like to spend a year here and from just one conversation. One thing that I really just want to know about, though, is where does Jesus fit in all this? Because it seems like, when Spielberg says you're going to be questioning your belief system. I mean, I forget what the exact quote is, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
Christians. I mean, That's basically saying you're going to be questioning Christ.
I mean, come on. If you question your belief system for a Spielberg movie, then your faith must be very weak from the start. I mean,
True, but he's also spellcasting. True.
I mean,
But I mean, to me, that's
but
like,
I understand what you're saying.
But I don't think we should ever see Jesus in the context of religion anyway. That's not. So go ahead, Leo.
Okay. What Laura has just said is the take of Monsignor Ravasi, who is used to be the head of the scientific department of the Vatican, who instead of people like the Jesuits had written this book, they have written also another book which is no longer around, which I actually provide a link in my book, and you can go and download it. It was a book which was exposed earlier on in Exo Vaticana by Tom Horn. Then it was later on. They almost forced the Vatican to then put it on the Vatican astronomical website. In that booklet, they actually show the aliens as saviors of mankind. So I mean, the Vatican is really has.
Well, that's what I want to. Because that's the thing they're trying to.
Now, who wrote the screenplay of this movie?
You said a Jesuit, right?
Yeah, it's David Coep, who is a Catholic, who is somebody who has adapted what Steven Spielberg has written. Steven Spielberg is somebody who doesn't want to really show his religious side in any movie. So he left David the possibility to develop that. You see, I had access, I don't want to tell how I had access to the script of this movie for a long time. For the last 6 months, I've been working on my book in relation to the whole film. So you can actually read in my book the film compared to the reality and everything else. So that is a great advantage. David Coep has shown in the figure of the nun, of the former nun, and also of a nun in the movie. There is this nun that at one point says a phrase. Well, that phrase is actually picked up from Padre Pio.
I love Padre Pio.
Padre Pio said there is many beings in the universe. And that's why I'm not, like you see, I'm not taking a firm take that everything in the universe is demonic, because that would be not a correct thing. When you say there is various races, then you have to adapt these races to the fact that yin and yang, good and evil, exist all over the universe. And you can place certain realities on, in the yin and others in the yang. So it would be erroneous. And that's why at times, when J.D. Vance said, well, these beings are demonic. And okay, some of them are. Some of them are. Definitely. I think, for example, the Greys are prevalently demonic in most of their aspects. Then there is maybe other races who have other, but the thing is that we at times overgeneralize. And but there has been a very interesting decision that was made by the Archbishop of Washington, D.C. lately, when he kicked out Monsignor Rossetti for stating that aliens were demons. He was literally kicked out of practicing after 19 years. He's an exorcist, and he was kicked out. Now, that is a very interesting thing, because the Catholic Church doesn't have an official stand. So how is it possible that Monsignor Stephen Rossetti gets kicked out of practicing this ministry, which is very important for the Catholic Church? Actually, there has been a lot of talk lately about increasing exorcists all over the United States, because after the pandemic, there's been a mega crisis. And you are kicking out a guy who for 19 years served in the Archdiocese of there in Washington. Why?
Also, he was in the NSA, so he may know what he's talking about. And the Pope did say every single parish should have an exorcist in it. So why kick him out?
That is because Cardinal McElroy works for Leo XIV, and Leo XIV has a very particular position at the moment towards the alien phenomenon. You see, while Pope Francis opened up to what Kai Consolmagno said and actually teased about baptizing the extraterrestrial himself and all that after Guy Consolmagno inaugurated this whole baptize the extraterrestrials in 2010, which, by the way, he picked up from earlier statements made by Father Coyne. Something happened with Pope Leo XIV. He has forbidden everybody from talking about it. And I have inside information in my book given from the Secretary of State of the Vatican, Cardinal Parolin, who has also is in a state of complete panic. He has admitted that, and Pinotti also witnessed that. So at the moment, the Vatican is forcing total silence on this whole thing. In the meantime, they have started refurbishing Castel Gandolfo in preparation for ultimate contact, starting this summer. Go and check out. Refurbishment of the Castel Gandolfo started in May of this year. And the Pope, because I have a dear friend who works very close to the Pope, so I know where the Pope is at all times, and he has told me that the Pope is spending more time in Castel Gandolfo than in the actual headquarters in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. In Castel Gandolfo, you have a room which is almost like the one you have seen in Disclosure Day, with panels and everything from all over the world, telescopes. And he's there preparing for the disclosure. Pope Leo XIV has taken this name on because Pope Leo XIII, of course, officially he has taken this name because Pope Leo XIII was the Pope that took over while there was the Industrial Revolution, and he's the one who takes over because of the AI is threatening the world. So he has to also do this encyclicas that he just did recently. And he did this encyclica with the biggest players in the AI world, Anthropic. So there is a whole thing that connects here, this whole, because you see, reverse engineering has brought us this technology. Reverse engineering has built this digital prison around us. Reverse engineering has brought us the AI.
Yeah.
So it's really important to understand what is happening behind the scenes. And when suddenly here at Contact in the Desert 2 weeks ago, Daniel Sheehan said the Pope invited me to go to Castel Gandolfo, and it's a confirmation of everything we have been discussing. And interestingly enough, Daniel Sheehan this year said at Contact, he gave the whole story of the ufology movement. Oh, from our early beginnings, here and there in the desert, Contact used to be there at Joshua Tree. Then there was these other conferences before. Like it was almost, but that gives away the fact that the Jesuits were always there monitoring the whole thing through him.
Well, how does this all connect to my lab's military abductions, fake abductions? I mean, how is, because it seems that the trading of humans for technology began in the 1930s or 1929, and there's been a psyops kind of false military abduction. Can you say anything on that?
Well, of course, when it comes down to abductions and to contactism, there has been a lot of interest from the government, but ultimately it all connects with the technology that they have retrieved, often thanks to this remote viewing. I mean, in my book, at one point, I show how the Russians were actually, at one point, managed to organize a situation which was very similar to what we saw in Encounters of the Third Kind with Gorbachev, but then and involving Lieutenant Savin, for example. And when it comes down to abductions, well, we have to be very careful because certain abductions have definitely a demonic nature. We have seen that for centuries, once you name the name of Jesus or God, these abductions end in a second. So I'm always a little bit wary of the abduction phenomena because it's very much connected to something demonic. Contactism is different. Contactism and remote viewers and what they have done with contactism is of another level because they are actually working with this entity. It's a different thing from abduction. And I favor the study. Myself personally, I'm more interested in contact than abduction. I know that abduction it's actually something that can happen. In my own experience, at one point, I simply was, I don't want to anticipate too much because otherwise I would give away the book, but I might suspect that then for a couple of hours, I don't know what happened. So I might have also have suffered an abduction. But my most important element of the story was the contactism and the protocol of contact which was established back then.
So, Leo, what can we expect to hear though? Like, what do you think the Vatican is going to?
Okay.
What is their narrative? What do you think? What do you anticipate their narrative is going to be? What?
Well, first of all, there were some polls. I don't know if you ever heard of the Alexander's poll or the ones that followed in 2008. You ever heard of those?
No.
Okay, in my book, in chapter 4 of my book, I explain how the Alexanders, now the Alexanders are a couple of people who maybe, are you acquainted with John Alexander, Laura?
Yeah, he was the penguin in the aviary, and he was a part of the Mars recruitment.
Okay, now his wife, who apparently was also an abductee, you're talking about abductions, and that is rather interesting because the first poll that is known, and you can, made by Victoria Alexander, who is the wife, it was made on a number of religious people and how then they will react. There was polls that were conducted. The first was the Victoria Alexander. The second one was the Ted Peters, which is known as the Peters ET Religious Crisis Survey. Now, these surveys are deemed very important by the Vatican. Even recently as a month ago, Guy Consolmagno, 3 weeks ago, I think, he cited them in an interview. They're very important because for the Vatican, they want to understand how people will react. And so the reaction and how they will react in specific religious denominations. So the difference between, for example, an evangelical reacting, a Catholic reacting, an Orthodox reacting, is something that has been studied since the 90s and since they made this. So in 1994, Victoria Alexander with John B. Alexander, who, by the way, as you know, they're also connected to Robert Bigelow, with the financing of Robert Bigelow, they put together this Alexander UFO Religious Crisis Survey, which is known as the AUFORCS. I will strongly advise you to go and check it out. And then you had the other survey which I mentioned. But the interesting thing is that Victoria Alexander and her husband are both linked to Edward Teller. Do you know who Edward Teller is? He's a guy from the Manhattan Project. Because the Manhattan Project then becomes the Department of Energy, and the Department of Energy and the CIA, they're involved in the legacy program, and that is what is obstructing real disclosure.
Mm.
So you have, you see, I even published a photo in my book in which you have Al Puthoff, Philip Corso, Edward Tellers, all together. And I show really all these links. And then let's not forget, the Alexanders were members of the Temple of Set of Michael Aquino.
So again, we're saying this.
Okay.
Right. I mean, that's just wild because the aviary, Hal Puthoff, John Alexander, Richard Doty, all these bird names have these deeper ties. Yeah. God.
Yeah. But you see, the interesting thing is, why giving a poll, the first poll of its kind, the first survey of its kind, in the hands of people like this? And then, there is a link between the Temple of Set and the Jesuits. Some of the first members of the Temple of Set Council were actually former Jesuits.
So basically, like you say, we talked about this in our last conversation, fake Catholics, fake, right? It's just
you see, for example, just think for a moment how Catholics reacted to this alien phenomenon. You have The post-conciliary Catholics, the ones that followed the Church of Pope Leo, Pope Francis, from, let's say, everything that from 1966 onwards, because that's the year zero of the Second Vatican Council, after it ended in December 1965. And it's, by the way, the year zero also of Satanism, because it's the year the Church of Satan was founded. But
Wow.
in any case, there is a post-conciliar vision, which embraces the aliens as our brothers. And then you have the traditional Catholics that are more like J.D. Vance, or more on the traditional, the ones that follow the Latin Mass that is being fought by the Vatican in recent years and all that, who instead think of them as demons. Now, we have to be definitely asserting that the truth lies always in the middle. Because you can't, it lies in a gray area. Actually, you have the gray area.
That's funny that they're gray.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about all this is that the latest survey was created by Reverend Dr. Peters, who is an ordained pastor of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, which recently has been hand in hand with the Vatican. And this survey was, like I said, was conducted, and let's not forget that Peters is also a member of MUFON. I mean, MUFON is also involved in all this. The Jesuits also control MUFON. So they control the whole show.
Yeah. What if, well, I won't ask, but keep going.
But Laura, I would like to, have your first impressions of all this. I hope that you will read the book, because I'm sure you will benefit from it. But what is your take at the moment on what I said?
Oh, it all lines up. It absolutely resonates. And I'm going to read the book. I would love to talk to you, afterwards. And I'm just so grateful for all that you put out there. And lots of dots are connecting, lots of, yeah. I definitely have a lot of thoughts and questions. I might just write you as this process unfolds and I read your
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much for what you said. Now, when it comes to the service that were done, you had, the Roman Catholic has one vision, the Protestants mainline have another vision, the Protestants evangelical have another vision, the Orthodox have the Mormons, the Jews, the Buddhists, the Hindus. Now, the fact that religion is involved in all this, you said earlier that you thought we should separate the two things.
Right?
Yes. What is your take in that sense?
Oh, when we were talking about Jesus?
Yes.
Right. Well, I feel religion has just taken over teachings that I don't feel are fully from the
taken over the scientific aspects of it.
The scientific aspects of it?
No, I mean, the scientific is almost like you're saying that, yes, they are taking over what should be in reality discussed only maybe in the frame of science.
Well, I feel, we have a divine blueprint that's been tampered with, and this junk DNA is not really junk DNA. And I feel the Christ Sophia, the Magdalene energy, the balance of the masculine and feminine, when you see, church and patriarchy and controlling disclosure and some of the altered texts that have been handed to people and the dogmas that people attach themselves to, and the whole infrastructure and how it relates to the mothers of dark, just the underbelly, which so well about, that you expose, that people don't have to get lost in understanding the larger picture when it comes to extraterrestrials, that really, source emanation, Christ Sophia, and all the different star systems.
Yeah, because I noticed
some are fallen and some aren't. Like you said, there's positive and negative, but it doesn't take away, who the Christ energy is at all. It just opens up a larger landscape that can't be limited to. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I understand. You think that certain theological, and in fact, what I'm sharing in my book is the different theological prospects, trying to be very, I mean, I actually am not judging. I'm trying to put them through for you to have a complete map of all these various.
That's the perfect approach and the most activating to people, because they feel that ability to explore without it's
without being pushed in a direction. Because, I might have my own personal take on certain things, but in the end, it doesn't benefit the discussion. If I'm showing, for example, it's very interesting, like in the Orthodox Russian Church, there is Seraphim Rose, who is now on his way to sainthood. He was a monk who actually lived here in California, but he was part of the Russian Church. And actually, his take is a very interesting take, but it's not shared then by certain people within an Orthodox church here in the US, which has a completely a different outlook. So they each have their own theological differences at times, when they talk about the Nephilim, and then when they talk about the Book of Enoch. And then, of course, there is certain factions who say, well, the Book of Enoch is irrelevant because it's never been accepted within the canonical, only by certain churches within very limited, in Africa, in Eritrea, in Ethiopia, whatever. And so it makes the whole thing, like you said, very much in the hands of people who claim they hold the ultimate truth, when the ultimate truth is very difficult to obtain if you don't have a direct experience or a direct knowledge of it all.
totally, absolutely.
I think that is really, and so in my book, like I said, I left my own personal experience as a side note at the very end of it to not distract from the rest.
I love that. I love it. And that's kind of how I felt when I was writing my book. It's like I might have my way of seeing things and experiencing things, but it's really about us all being able to experience it in our own way, in a sovereign way, and not have those differences divide us. So yeah.
Yes, because then it becomes like no, I see that for me, the Nephilim, the fallen angels are physical, for you are interdimensional, for them, the giants were physical, then they were the spirits of the Nephilim, or they were, it becomes like all these nuances, like when it comes also to the sex of the angels, it goes back to a discussion that the church has had for hundreds of years, and brings me back to my childhood when I used to watch this Italian comedy film called Brancaleone Valle Crociate by a brilliant director called Monicelli, who used to have this take at one point, because it was based in the medieval times. And at one point there is this old sage which talks. So did you come to me to discuss if the angels have or don't have the sex, and if they are, they made a big discussion in books that were this thick about it. And if the angels have the sex, could they mate with women and then produce their offspring, or didn't produce their offspring? Or then you have Father De Young, who went on Tucker Carlson and said that there were rituals that produce the offspring of the present elite rather than a physical DNA. I mean, it becomes a headache. but all these various takes need to be relayed in a book. So then we can make, like you said, our own mind up on the final outcome that we want for our own sovereign life,
Oh, totally. And that's what's so beautiful about what you do, because there's not an agenda. It's there to help people experience something and see how it lands without the pushiness, because people that push narratives tend to delete and block people who don't agree, and it just ends up being this information war. And it doesn't have to be like that. So that's so beautiful that.
No, but also, at the end of the day, the Catholic clergy is also the one that was involved with the occult for centuries. They actually operated with forbidden grimoires for the evocation of certain entities. So there is also a dark side that, of course, the Catholic Church might have in this whole thing. But it's also, when they created the Inquisition to practice those who were basically competing with them. They were not just condemning, they were not just going to somebody, oh, you evoked the devil, you shouldn't do that, bad boy, I'm going to put you on the stake, or you are a witch. they did it because they were themselves doing those things, and they wanted to have exclusivity over those matters, over the control of certain grimoires, of certain hidden practices. That is also a very interesting thing. Think that the last victim of the Inquisition was actually Cagliostro, who himself had this inspiration from an extra terrestrial or interdimensional force that inspired his own Egyptian rite. He taught also this method of rejuvenation through 40 days of a specific ritual, because then it seems that alongside with all these contacts in the old day, in the past centuries, there was also this fascination with immortality, which has never died in the elite. The elite still to this day, including Vladimir Putin, spends billions to stay young, or to run and to accede to the elixir of life, because they claim that they might obtain this elixir of life. Anyway, the whole thing about the Jesuits is that they have always had control over the narrative. If you think that they were involved in condemning Giordano Bruno. Giordano Bruno, who statue is in Campo dei Fiori, was that thinker who hypothesized that there would be life on other planets. And Giordano Bruno was actually sent on the stake with his mouth closed down so he couldn't utter a word, and he was banned on the stake for those things that he said. Which is, and now they want to embrace the extraterrestrial. So they made a complete change. They go from condemning, it's like when they condemn Galileo Galileo. The church has always then changed for convenience. That's the problem here. So now they want to promote the aliens as saviors of mankind, but that is because they have a hidden agenda and a convenience to do so.
Okay, but what is their hidden agenda to promote the aliens as the saviors of mankind?
Well, first of all, they are behind the reverse engineering and the military-industrial complex. So their interest is, at that point, very tangible interest.
Right.
In regards to, instead, the establishment of a one-world religion, and then get the people of the world to embrace whatever take they have on the alien agenda. Because
so it's all power to get everybody under one umbrella to...
Yeah, and then they will say, these are the saviors of mankind, or they are the ones dictating the narrative. So in the end, like, for example, the Pope at the moment has ordered a complete silence on the topic after a few years in which they were much more open. Imagine that at one point you had a guy like Balducci. You remember Laura Balducci? Corrado Balducci, the exorcist that then became this very outspoken guy. He's no longer with us, but he was also a guy very close to the ufologic world, to the world of ufology. He even came here in the United States the last time before he died. I think it was with Stephen Bassett. So he came here to deliver a talk about embracing the extraterrestrials. He was very much about embracing them. Now, I think that, yes, we can embrace something, but we can't embrace something we don't completely know. So then it means that they know something that we don't at that point, or they have decided to side with a certain faction.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, very important. In regards to the reverse engineering Trojan horse to imprison humanity, I think that we are seeing very clearly that the Vatican also has taken a stand, saying, we stand with Anthropic because they are the ethically and morally correct way of the AI. Then we go and see that Anthropic is still providing services to the Pentagon, and for any special operation where Anthropic will be required, they will not use ChatGPT even after they stop using official Anthropic. So it's just, it's like presenting to the world a good side of the AI against a bad side of the AI, and they are, and they are with the good side of the AI. The AI is the Trojan horse that is built so that the aliens don't have to land with an independent day kind of scenario. They are already landing in every corner of the United States with data centers, which are part of the Stargate project.
Yes, gosh.
So I mean, it's very difficult for us to accept certain things because we always like to have the hope that maybe with these ongoing disclosures, things can get better. But think about this for a moment. President Xi Jinping, Xi Jinping, you know, and then you have President Vladimir Putin, and then you have Donald Trump. These people, they have access to the truth, and they know that they are competing on building up and being able to reverse engineer better than the other, the competitor. This kind of thing. So that's why, you know. And then we have, of course, another important element in my book, which I would like to end with, which I think is very important. The Vatican, after the 60s and the establishment of the line that was established in the Second Vatican Council, created the faculty of paranormology. Now, the faculty of paranormology, both at the Gregoriana and at the Lateranense, so both institutions which are linked to the Jesuits, one more formally, the other one less. Father Resch died a few months ago, in February of this year. He was the guy, and Roberto Pinotti had also the opportunity to, of course, speak with him, who was preparing the clergy for extraterrestrial contact. But he was also the guy who worked with Uri Geller and Dr. Al Puthoff. So the faculty of paranormology in the Vatican is a reality that very few people know about. He was the one who intervened in the long-standing case of the Holy Mary of Medjugorje to see if it was either a genuine or non-genuine apparition. Then you have all the phenomena of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which of course were brought up as UFO events by Jacques Vallée in the end of the 60s with one of his books. And then later on in 1990 was this whole Blessed Virgin Mary apparition phenomenon was made wide known in Europe thanks to the books, a specific book of Roberto Pinotti and Corrado Malanga dedicated to this phenomenon. Now, that is very important, the Blessed Virgin Mary apparitions, because...
because what are you saying, that they're real or not real?
They're UFO. They are connected to UFO events.
Okay.
But they are transmitting then knowledge to the world because these apparitions then coincide with messages, like the Fatima messages.
Right. The third secret. Which...
Yeah, my father used to go to Medjugorje on a constant basis and visit with the children that were having the apparitions and the 10 messages, similar to the James Redfield book. There's 10 messages coming.
And in fact, Father Resch was very puzzled about the fact, and then he led a whole team there that eventually confirmed that they were genuine. But genuine, it depends what kind. I mean, in the end, when it comes to genuinity, the Vatican had to, I don't know if you heard about it, but they had to issue then a new directive in the study of these apparitions because they are going a little bit out of hand.
Because there were so many of them? Is that why?
Yeah.
Because there was they keep escalating.
They keep escalating, and at times they become also for some people, some poor people who want to take advantage, a way of maybe, popularizing an area touristically or making money, selling, I don't know, rosaries or t-shirt or whatever, Unfortunately, this is what happens these days. There is a lot of things, but I talked about very much in my book extensively of this phenomena because it's totally connected to the UFO phenomenon.
You know what? This, to me, I love the Blessed Mother, and I think a whole episode on this would be amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a very complex. I mean, it's not something you can liquidate with two or three words. I mean, it's
I know. I
complex. I
know.
mean, the phenomenon is a phenomenon that goes on for hundreds of years. I mean, and it's been constantly present. So definitely, yeah, in the
I
future.
mean, I would love that because I've actually written extensively about it myself, and I.
One last thing that I want to connect with this book is, there's been a lot of talk about this scientist that disappear, and then there is, of course, the Air Force, the retired Air Force Major General William Neil McCausland.
Mhm.
Well, in my book, I reveal the real reason,
What?
and it's hardcore.
What? You won't tell us?
I can tell you something. There was a meeting in Rome between John Podesta and the Illuminati, and then
Ugh.
later on, there is Tom DeLonge that popped in, trying to establish this whole thing that then was liquidated because Tom DeLonge, you remember, was trying to become this. To the Stars Academy of the Arts and Sciences. He wanted to present to the world this reverse engineering. He was
Mm.
to the ground. And now his whole organization has changed even the name, left all the scientific stuff out, and just simply become an entertainment company.
Hal Puthoff
Mm.
was connected with that too.
Huh?
Hal Puthoff was connected to that
Yeah,
too.
of course. Alpudov was his partner in that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and the general now is disappeared.
He's
But I mean, would you say, even though Hal's a gatekeeper, that there's positive things that he?
Okay, let's say this, that not all gatekeepers are necessarily evil people. I said that even I mean, definitely we cannot judge everybody, but the problem is that unfortunately people like Al Puthoff definitely have that kind of tendency, because when you tend to cover up so many secrets and have that kind of level of security clearance, which is above the president of the United States. Al Puthoff knows more than the president of the United States. He
Yeah.
has an above
Oh.
security.
Yeah,
So,
and I experienced him firsthand, so I know the dark side of him. But wow, he has more secure. Yeah, wow.
yeah, he has. And in fact, he got in an argument with Dr. Weinstein about it, because Dr. Weinstein at one point said to him, "You can't classify reality. You can't block for us a whole reality, because what are you doing?" So, people now are saying, the four races. Al Puthoff has mentioned the four races. In reality, Al Puthoff was just mentioning what his pal, Dr. Davis, said to the Congress. And Dr. Davis, in fact, this year was next to Jacques Vallée accounted in the desert, and they were being gatekeepers together. Gatekeepers extraordinaire. I mean, once you have the whole picture of this gatekeeping world, of course, it's prevailing the fact that, yes, you can justify them because they are operating for national security interest, but
I'm
it
not on the
doesn't
side of any
really.
of them.
But you can't side with them because,
No,
I mean,
never.
no.
No, that's not what I was saying. But just how it appears to certain people, so many feel that, yeah, they don't see these deeper layers. And I've been I've been exposing him since 2010. Just what I, experience with him. But it's funny because you and I don't go to contact in the desert anymore, isn't that?
Yeah, no, it's true. And the last time we actually met, I counted in the desert. So it is very interesting, this take. Now, one thing that I can say is that, you see, they tend to merge the genuine people who are enthusiasts, who have direct experiences, who are very genuine about their approach, people like you, with these very calculated people who go there to print, to manipulate the narrative. And I think that contact in the last few years has been escalating towards this point, and this year it was like a complete takeover. It was almost like they could have invited the Father Sosa from the Astronomical Center in the Vatican to direct the whole show, because it was perfectly orchestrated. You had every single gatekeeper in the book this year encountered in the desert.
Wow.
Luis Elizondo, you had Jeremy you had Jeremy Corbell, sorry, with who Jeremy Corbyn, who did this last film portrayed as a martyr of ufology. Where was Jeremy Corbyn 10 years ago? He was nowhere to be seen. But these people pop up out of nowhere and they are artificially constructed as the saviors of humanity.
And he's afraid that he's like in danger right now. I feel so sorry for him. I mean, he was just on Finnerty complaining that he's so afraid right now.
Yeah, he's scared, because they have to.
God.
Oh, wow. No, definitely. When instead the guy is simply playing martyr to the cause and he has a role to play and it's all calculated. I mean, and then you have, for example, Luis Elizondo who goes, and everybody's like, Luis Elizondo. Luis Elizondo came out of it's like they picked him up out of that New York Times article that was launching the TikTok frenzy in 2017.
Right.
And then, it's like the illusion is taking out a rabbit. Luis Elizondo.
Well, he's such a CIA shill, and he can't even get photographs right. It's like one thing is more phony than the next.
But I will always say that the most dangerous one of them all is the one who controls the gatekeepers, which is a gatekeeper controller, Daniel Sheehan, because he's a gatekeeper controller.
Okay.
And that is a level on top of the level. It's like Al Puthoff. He's at that level of controlling the gatekeepers. And it's sad to see, though, that there is all these genuine people that go to this conference, and they really are, there's a hunger for truth. And unfortunately, what they're given is peanuts.
Oh, totally. Totally.
You know what? You know what's so great about you, Leo, is that you just pierce through the bullshit and you just go right for the truth. And I think
it doesn't make me very popular, though.
Yeah, but you know what? It makes us want to listen to you. And we're going to definitely we need to have you on again because there's so much here. And I'd love to. I mean, we should definitely do a show on the Blessed Mother and the Marian.
Absolutely. I will conclude saying that all this, I don't know if you followed at the end of May, there was this whole thing, which I relayed also in my book, this whole episode with this meeting of pastors and a congressman. And then there was...
I wanted to ask you about that too, but I know that we have a lot, but yeah.
But it was hilarious how it ended up with this evangelical pastor Hagland doing a disclaimer. I didn't mean to say that. No, it was only my fault. I never said that. Congressman Burlington said that. No.
It's a good thing he's not Catholic because he would have to go to confession.
Yeah, he will be beaten up by Al Puthoff, who is a good Catholic.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Al Puthoff, he goes to mass every week. Him and the Greys. He confesses.
Yeah.
I know we got to close.
It was a fantastic experience today. I guess that we have relayed to our viewers a lot of information.
Real quick though, what are your thoughts on the Nordic-looking ETs that Trump is being pictured with?
I think that Trump is doing a great job at trolling people with this whole UFO agenda. And I mean, it's not very respectful to people who want to do a serious disclosure when you are equiparating on your official website the aliens to the illegal aliens. It's something that then he did that picture with the gray alien in chains, distasteful. And then this other thing with the Nordics. Now, regardless of his AI generated or not, it seems like he's always in search of attention. It's always like the strategy of attention, works for Trump. Good or bad, they always want people to talk about him. And suddenly, yesterday, instead of a UFO landing in front of the White House, we had the UFC landing in front of the White House with that big monstrosity, which looked like some tacky thing from Las Vegas. No, it's. I don't know about those Nordics. They should have been taller, though, Laura.
I really like their hair, though. I was like, man, I want
It's
that.
okay. Then, I saw comments like people, this was an official delegation from Norway.
I know.
I lived in Norway.
It's funny. I'm sorry. I did.
Yeah, no.
And I think that humor is always a good thing to have.
And now there was somebody who told me that you, Laura, believed it wasn't AI generated.
No, I didn't say that. Somebody
Mm.
put it in
Mm.
some sort of test to see if it was AI generated.
Mm.
I haven't really posted about it. But yeah, I might have said that to somebody that, oh, somebody said it wasn't AI generated. And then I was thinking, well, they could come up with a fake thing that says it wasn't AI generated.
I asked
And or they
Grok.
could be actors that put a bunch of powder on their face. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean, and go in from, yeah, why not? I mean, it's not like you can't find people that toil and dye their hair. I mean, it wasn't like,
oh,
yeah,
I know.
definitely.
And where's the ship? And like, what? It's just, it's just, I can't.
It does shows that there is a lot of interest, especially when you had so many clicks on the official government disclosure website. It shows that people are really interested and eager to know something more. Now, I think that they will not get that from the official government disclosure ever. It will always be compromised by their own interest.
Totally.
And that's really the shame because people really want the truth and they have this need to know. And again, we're being lied to on a consistent basis.
Yeah. Now there is an opportunity here for eventually any alien race that wants to really demonstrate contact to show themselves to the world, or rather they could be instead a disclosure in a way Steven Spielberg has portrayed that could obviously be manipulated left, right, and center because we will be shown something that will be sold to us for real, but God knows then what is the real intention behind it? The abduction phenomenon, which is a very important and relevant phenomenon, is because humans are needed also in what is the hybrids program, which is another part which I've discussed in my book, which exists for hundreds of years. In fact, there is actually traces of the hybrid program in the Vatican archives.
I mean, we should do another episode on just the Vatican archives. I mean, there's so much to unpack.
Absolutely, there is a lot. Definitely a lot. Well, I'm up for it. I will I will look forward to another chat once you have a dig deep into my book and maybe find the
Absolutely.
topics of interest that you find
Oh,
I think
interesting.
we should definitely
I
do
really
that.
look
I would love that. I
I
mean, you're
really look
always
forward to
the
more.
best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally look
Yeah.
forward to more. It's always amazing to talk with you, and I really look forward to reading it. And we'll share all the info and the description.
For
And
me, I think it was really important that today I started this promotional effort to, to promote this book with you because you have also a direct link to this story. I mean, you are a great granddaughter of Eisenhower who was directly involved with this whole thing. I mean, if it wasn't really for your great grandfather, I don't think that the whole thing would have manifested in the way that is manifested today, both in the positive and in the negative. Because, of course, there is the positive sides of reverse engineering that we can all connect, that we can all do a lot of things that we couldn't do before.
right. But
You
there are
know,
many, many layers to it all because he worked with
yeah,
Ralph Thor. Helped set up the White House, the Earth Alliance, and countermeasures because, I mean, they had advanced technology that he did not have. So it wasn't like he was on the side of any of the darkness of it all. That's why he gave us a warning.
absolutely.
And the fact that he put countermeasures in place that survived today was something
And
good,
he,
but
and he
definitely.
coined the military industrial complex term, which describes it all. And it's at the basis of the problem,
Mhm.
no?
Yeah,
Because
and I've definitely there's so much there, and the control that they had, 30 levels of top secret above the president, MJ12, three-letter organizations. He tried to take out the Nazis in the war, and they freaking had the advanced tech with the Dracos. So
think about
anyway,
it. This week, the last week has been an historic week because even if it's a disclosure that is being orchestrated, we saw that the disclosure advocates were on the stairs of the Capitol Hill of Congress there, doing their thing, and of course. It is an interesting spectacle to observe once you know the truth, though. If you are just brought for a ride from them, then you go along with the ride. That's why my book, I invite everybody to get my book to not become passive observers, but to act conscious of what is really going on behind the scenes. And
thank
thank you
you.
so much for giving me this opportunity today.
Oh, thank you
Absolutely.
so much. This was
Always.
really Amazing. And we look forward to more. Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking forward to after you read the book that because I
Oh,
want.
totally. I'm all over it. Okay.
Yeah,
Take care,
absolutely.
Leo. Thank you so much.
Take care, ladies. All the best. God bless you.
God
God
bless.
bless.